Who killed Hoffa? The mystery reopened this week, and yeah, we're taking the bait. Call us crazy like a Machus Red Fox. Viva La Rouge! Detroit City Football Club navigating the season amid a huge undertaking of building a new stadium. But can anything hold up that progress? This is Flashpoint. Happy Sunday, everybody. After missing last week for the Scotty Scheffler show, we are back. And so is one of the 20th century's biggest what happened to's. You know, what happened to Amelia Earhart? What happened to D.B. Cooper? What happened to Jimmy Hoffa? Obviously, that one is of utmost fascination for us here because of all those wild goose chases the FBI has gone on in Metro Detroit to find Hoffa's body. Few American figures in history have blended power, controversy, and mystery quite like Hoffa. He rose from humble beginnings to become the fiery, unstoppable leader of the Teamsters, one of the most influential labor unions of all time. With that came powerful friends, but also dangerous enemies. That led to July 30th, 1975, when Jimmy Hoffa vanished outside the Machus Red Fox Restaurant in Bloomfield Township. This morning, we're diving into the latest clues into one of the greatest mysteries to ever grip the public's imagination. It comes after a big reveal at an event this week, maybe the most credible yet. And here are the sources on this chapter. True crime reporter Scott Burnstein, ex-Detroit mobster Novi Tocco, and former federal prosecutor Richard Convertino. Do they really know what happened to Jimmy Hoffa? Let's find out right now on Flashpoint. Joining us this morning to talk about that, the reporter behind this story, Scott Burnstein. And Scott, first of all, tell me, before we get to the big reveal that you had this week at Macomb Community College, what are your origins to this story? How did you first get involved in telling it and getting the people involved together?
So I've been studying and researching this case for 20 years. It all, tipped off when I got my book deal when I was like 28 years old, and I was writing a book about the history of the Detroit Mafia. And obviously, if you're gonna, author a book about the Detroit Mafia, one of the first things you're gonna deep dive is the Hoffa case. So 20 years, I've interviewed almost every FBI agent that has worked the case. I have interviewed a dozen members of the actual Tocco-Zerilli crime family, 3 of which the FBI believes were involved in the case. Mm-hmm. I've reviewed literally tens of thousands of FBI intelligence files and records related to the case. So I don't think there's anybody outside of maybe Dan Moldea out east who I consider the kind of the godfather of Hoffa research. Yeah. Because he was there from day one at ground zero. I wasn't born yet. So I have to defer to him in terms of tenure. But other than Dan, I don't think anybody in the world has looked into this case or reviewed this case or had the authority, had enough of an understanding or grasp of it to consider themselves the preeminent authority, and I feel like I fit that bill.
I've heard you say that the fascination with this case, and I know there's no body, which is why the public is fascinated. But as you talk to all the people, is it the same? Is that what?
It's the mythology. Yeah. The fact that there is no body, leads to the mythology, the mystique.
What happened?
And the more people look for something that doesn't exist, the more digs, the more rumors, the more speculation, and the more times people come up empty in those searches or digs, the more the mythology grows, and then it kind of feeds on itself, and it becomes this larger than life, almost like an aura or a vibe that transcends just the mob or Metro Detroit.
Right.
It becomes embedded in Americana and pop culture. I mean, this is something that has almost become a punchline And that's not necessarily a good thing.
It's pop culture.
Yeah.
It's literally ingrained in pop culture. So how did you connect with Novi Tocco and Richard Convertino for this, leading to the big reveal earlier this week?
So I met Novi maybe about 10 years ago, around the time that he came back to Detroit. We had a very...
Coming out of witness protection?
Yeah, coming out of witness protection. I had spent the last year of his uncle's I spent a year with his uncle, Tocco-Zerilli, who was the underboss of the Detroit mob. I spent a year with him at the end of his life, going over his history and his connection to this case, and he gave me a lot of really valuable intelligence. And then from Mr. Zerilli, I met Novi Tocco. We were casual acquaintances for about 10 years, and then in the last 5 or 6 months, we began podcasting together. And so we developed a really good rapport. Richard Convertino I met about 15 years ago, related to some research into some other cases. And he actually brought me, Rick Convertino solved this whole thing 30 years ago.
Right.
Back in the 90s. And he brought that theory to the FBI, and it was, kind of put over to the side. He brought that theory to me in 2008 and 2009. I kind of dismissed it. It really wasn't until I interviewed Tocco-Zerilli, and Tocco-Zerilli went to the FBI in 2012, being the highest ranking member of the mob to ever come forward in Detroit to the FBI, and he named Tony Palazzolo, who's the name, the big reveal.
Yeah.
Who was a downriver mob figure, very under the radar, but still very important and powerful.
Yeah, it's funny because I think along a lot of the theories over the years that it was always not the family who was behind it, but it was always expected that it was some lower figure that actually pulled the trigger. But
I'll say that I think the issue that I always had was that it was this East Coast narrative.
Yeah.
That somehow the guys from New Jersey came into Detroit to do a job that Detroit could easily do themselves, and did do themselves.
So take us to July 30th, 1975, outside the Machus Red Fox Restaurant. Who's in the car? What happens? Take us through the story to the end from there.
I believe that Jimmy Hoffa was kidnapped from the restaurant parking lot in Bloomfield Township in a car that was being driven by Tony Palazzolo. I believe the car also had in it Billy Giacalone, who was a high-ranking
guys he trusted.
Detroit Mafia capo. And the third member in the car, it was either Peter Vitale or Jimmy Quasarano, who were two guys that helped mentor Tony Palazzolo, who's the name that we kind of have zeroed in on here in our theory.
So from there,
and I believe Billy Giacalone got him into the car because the sit down that Hoffa was going to was with Anthony Giacalone and Anthony Provenzano. If Hoffa had saw Billy Giacalone, who was Tony Jack's kind of right-hand man there, Billy could have got him in the car and said, you know what, Jimmy, we moved the meeting. We're no longer going to meet at the Red Fox. We're going to meet at a private residence down the street.
And from there they go to
I believe at that point
Greektown?
I believe at that point they went to a house on West Long Lake, around the corner of West Long Lake and Telegraph, about 2-3 minute drive north from the Red Fox. It was a house that belonged to a Detroit mob soldier named Carlo Licata, who was the brother-in-law of the acting boss at that time of the Detroit mob, Jack Tocco. I believe he was killed at Carlo Licata's house, and then, according to our theory and according to a wiretap from 1993, Hoffa's body was taken and put through a sausage auger, and then the remains from the sausage auger were taken to a trash company called Central Sanitation in Hamtramck and incinerated. The incinerator and the company, Central Sanitation, burned down in an arson fire in the coming months.
What a coincidence that is.
Yeah.
Now, I guess the first question there, in our special that we're running coming up next week, Novi Tocco says, do I know who killed? Yes, I do. Because, and does he says it was his family that handled it, meaning
the Tocco-Zerilli crime family were the ones that were given the contract. They were the ones that coordinated all the details, and they're the ones that carried it out.
Yeah. Do you ever get into the why? Somebody asked me that the other day. I said I couldn't remember if it was Hoffa was just trying to get back into power and was stepping on too many toes.
Yeah, I would say it was kind of three things. It was A, that Hoffa was trying to take back the Union, and it was told that he wasn't wanted back. the mob benefactors, his mob benefactors that had put him into power, had kind of decided to pull the plug on him. He had become too much kind of a headache. That was one. Two, it was discovered and rumors were beginning to circulate that he was an FBI informant at the end of his life. And then three, on July 10th, about 3 weeks before Hoffa disappeared, there was a car bombing at Nemo's, which is a bar, still exists on Michigan Avenue, close to where Local 299 was, which was Hoffa's power base, the Teamsters Union, where a lot of people would go and drink after work. Hoffa's main rival in the union at that point, Frank Fitzsimmons, who had replaced him as the international Teamsters boss, had his car firebombed at that bar, and those three things together led to a murder contract being put out on Jimmy Hoffa's head.
So why should people believe this is the theory? Not that he's in the Rensen or under Giants Stadium or in a landfill in New Jersey. Why, in your mind, is this what happened?
Well, first of all, it's coming from me.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, nobody studied this case more than I have, and I'm coming forward after 2 decades and kind of giving a theory that culminates in my 20 years of, or that brings the curtain down on my 20 years of research. I wanted to share with everybody what really happened, because there's been so many bad faith actors out there trying to spread misinformation. And this, you know, a tape, as a lot of famous attorneys have said, you can't cross-examine a tape.
Yeah.
And this is Tony Palazzolo himself on a tape admitting that he killed Jimmy Hoffa and admitting that he put Jimmy Hoffa through a sausage auger. So, you know, this is coming from the horse's mouth, if you will. And then it's coming from, again, not just myself, but it's coming from all three angles. Novi Tocco, who was a member of the mob family that did this, and then Richard Convertino is coming from a law enforcement angle, from people that, you know, from the government standpoint that investigated it.
Scott, thanks so much, and congratulations on this. We hope you'll watch our first edition, by the way, of Backstory. It's the documentary behind this. Scott heavily featured in this. It's coming up Wednesday. It's called Backstory, Hoffa, 8 p.m., Local 4+. More after this. Back on Flashpoint with the founder and CEO of Detroit City Football Club, Sean Mann. Great to see you again. A lot of excitement about the new stadium. I'd like to talk about that. But first, how's the season going currently?
Yeah, the women's season ended, won the division, unfortunately lost in the playoffs. The men's season, we're midway through. We're still in a playoff spot. So, you know, looking forward to, you know, finishing strong and getting hopefully a home playoff game like we did last year.
Yeah, it's always an ups and downs of a long season. But when you look at the way people show up and show out to Keyworth every time, it's still such an event there.
Yeah, I mean, last week we had a national broadcast game, full house. It was electric, beautiful atmosphere. You know, would have loved to have another goal, not to be greedy, but no, it's a really special place we have there, and you know, we're cherishing the moments we still have.
And as we talk about, just like when we always see the highlights of Keyworth and just how rabid the atmosphere is in a good way, as we talk about the new stadium that's coming around the corner, I bet it's the top of mind to say we've got to find a way to transfer that energy of just kind of the organicness of that stadium to the new place.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've created a really special place in American soccer, but you know, in particular in Detroit sports, right? And and it's that like fan-centered experience, and you know, whether it's the cost of attending a game to just the organic atmosphere. And so like we've always had the opinion like we're the host of the party, not the life of the party, right? And so, you know, when we roll out the stadium design, you'll see that like, you know, we're still the only team in North America where those supporters, those people standing and singing the entire game, are still front and center. They're right there at midfield. Like they're part of creating that whole atmosphere in the stadium. Yeah.
Now the new stadium, where do we stand in the process? I know you've hit some we'll call them bumps in the road recently, but where are we at there?
Yeah, I mean, as we speak, there's 12,000 gallons an hour of water being pumped out of the basement.
One of the bumps that I was referring to.
So that's being cleaned, filtered, and now being disposed. And so that's the first step of getting demolition going. And so it looks like we got another week or so of that. But right on the heels of that, we'll have a wrecking ball there at the stadium.
Yeah, for those who don't know, you're filtering it because they found it to be contaminated water in there, correct?
Sure, similar to like like Michigan Central or any other project. Yeah.
And of course, there was a tragic finding of a body there. Did that slow the process down, or was that just a tragedy that police have to clean up?
Yeah, obviously, it was a very tragic incident. And it just drives home for us the importance of like dealing with this blight. I've lived in the neighborhood for 20 years, and it's a great privilege to have an opportunity to like do something about something that's weighing down the neighborhood. So moving forward.
Which I've read from accounts from neighbors who are just thrilled, dying to get this eyesore out of the neighborhood, which has been there forever, to be able to welcome this stadium. Do you have, did it back things up, or are you still on schedule where you want to be? I know you wanted to start construction in the spring of this year, but obviously we've missed that deadline.
Yeah, our goal is to be ready for the 27 season, so excited that we'll get the public approval process going here shortly, and so we're still on track there. So it's always been an aggressive time frame. We're pushing all the architects, every contractor as quickly as possible, but our goal is, to get into this new venue. It's a huge time for soccer, right? We got the World Cup next year, so we want to capitalize on that. But also, it's just time. Like, it's time for us to have a proper venue. And for Detroiters, too, we talk about connecting. This is going to be a fantastic way to connect so many communities. How do you envision that happening? So, it's an amazing site right there where 96 and 75 meet. 2 million cars drive by it a week, but you've got Mexican Town and Corktown, 2 regional destinations, and we really have this like couple blocks that we've acquired. They're just a dead area right now, and so it's really envisioning like how that stadium's situated, where it bridges Werner and Michigan Avenue, and for us, we want to create a neighborhood asset. So how is it going to be activated 365, and it's not just a dead zone. So, we're looking at retail and restaurants that are outward facing on 20th Street, so that there's a continuous kind of foot traffic in that whole area. Very cool. And what sort of things can fans look forward to? Do you have anything up your sleeve that you're willing to unveil just yet, when maybe even before the new stadium comes out? Oh, around the stadium, we'll be announcing names of partners very shortly, and we'll be kicking off the public approval process. And part of that is we'll be having listening sessions with those supporters who've been with us to make sure that they have their say in what it looks like, and that it feels like home to them, same way Cass Tech and Keyworth have in the past. Yeah, very cool. And what's the feedback you get from the fans who've been with you from the beginning? There's got to be, I guess, probably a little disappointment leaving Keyworth. I just always feel it feels electric when I walk in there. That's why. Yeah, 2/3 of the people in the stadium still have to use porta johns, right? That's a good point. Yeah, so I think people appreciate Keyworth. I think they're excited for the next chapter. I think a lot of people have been with us for the last 14 years, are kind of the same way we do, kind of pinch themselves like they can't believe the journey that we've been on, and it's one of the most special in American pro sports. And so I think they appreciate being a part of it, and it centers that story, and we look forward to continuing that. I always feel like it reminds me of leaving Tiger Stadium to go to Comerica Park, and people are like, we can't possibly, and then they go, wow, this is so awesome. Yes, where has this been our entire life? I'm a romantic who bid on the old urinals at Tiger Stadium. I miss Tiger Stadium, but now I'm on the other side, and I realize that for us, to be competitive and sustainable long term, we have to have a different location. Well, everybody's rooting for you. We can't wait to see it and wait for that to happen. In the meantime, we got a football team to root for. Yep. Congratulations. Appreciate it. Sean, always a pleasure. Yep. Good to see you. Back on Flashpoint right after this. Stay with us. Four things making headlines this week we need to discuss before we get out of here. First, the Detroit mayor's race got a jolt this week when it was reported by WJBK that Solomon Kinloch Jr. was convicted of assault and battery with a knife against his then wife in 1993. We have confirmed the details of this case. Kinloch was 19 at the time and was sentenced to a year probation, which he violated at one point. We reached out to his campaign, which gave us this statement regarding the report. More than 30 years ago, as a 19-year-old, Pastor Kinloch made a mistake. He's never attempted to hide it or run from it. Rather, he has discussed it as part of his ministry and used it to help put countless others on the path to redemption. Pastor Kinloch preaches about second chances, forgiveness, and accepting that no one is perfect. Political rivals bringing this 30-year-old incident up while people are voting is politricks, but we will remain focused on delivering for Detroit, investing in neighborhoods, not just downtown, attacking poverty, and creating opportunity for all Detroiters. Will this have an effect on the race? We'll find out August 5th when the top 2 vote getters in the primary move on to
to the general election. To the state capitol now. The Detroit News reporting Friday, Republican Speaker of the House Matt Hall ousted Democratic Rep. Alabas Farhat, who was the ranking Democrat on the House Appropriations Committee. Hall telling the News Farhat agreed to vote on a bill Thursday and then voted against it. Hall said, in this business, all you have is your word. Farhat saying, quote, "It is a bleeping mess in Lansing right now." He didn't use the word bleeping, by the way. It certainly doesn't bode well for the state budget, which was supposed to be finalized July 1st. Now many worried about a government shutdown if it doesn't get done by October 1st, when the fiscal year starts. A long simmering feud between President Donald Trump and Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell was on full display for the public and reporters Thursday during a tour of renovations at the central bank's headquarters in Washington, D.C. They disagreed about the cost of the project.
It looks like it's about $3.1 billion. It went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed.
Yeah, it just came out.
Our notes had it about 3.1 as well.
3.1.
3.2.
This came from us?
Yes. I don't know who does that.
You're including the Martin renovation. You just added.
That's our entire capital plan.
Yeah, you just added in a third building is what that is.
Now, this is important because President Trump has threatened to fire Powell for not lowering interest rates, but he can only legally fire him for malfeasance. Going way over budget on renovations might be the avenue he's trying to take. Stay tuned. And finally, the obituary column was filled with memories of our childhood this week. The flugelhorn master Chuck Mangione died this week at age 84. His classic song, Feels So Good, made it all the way to number 4 in 1978. That was also the year things started to go bad with Black Sabbath. But their lead singer, Ozzy Osbourne, he went on to become a household name as a solo act in the 1980s. The godfather of heavy metal died this week at age 76. The 80s was also the decade we met Malcolm Jamal Warner, who we came to know as Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show. Warner tragically drowned in Costa Rica. He was just 54 years old. As his show was hitting number 1 in America, Andre the Giant was being body slammed to the mat at WrestleMania 3 at the Pontiac Silverdome. It was 1987, and the man who put him there, Hulk Hogan, the Hulkster, born Terry Bollea, passed away this week. Easily the most popular wrestler of all time, Hulkamania ran wild in the 80s, taking pro wrestling to the mainstream internationally. Hulk Hogan was 71. That is our show this week. Emails are always welcome at flashpoint@clickondetroit.com. I'm Jason Coulthorpe. We'll see you later.